Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Sarthak Show, where we discuss about tech, career, product and life. And today we have a very special guest with us, Marvin. He's working at Aerologics as a product manager. And Aerologics is that one company which is working in the aerospace tech and drone tech. So today we will understand how things work in that sector and that domain, how you can be interested in the aerospace industry and what you can do to be a part of it. And also there's going to be very amazing discussion about what you can do to be part of an early or mid-stage startup, or what are the pros that they bring on the table that you are going to definitely enjoy. So yeah, thank you so much, Marvin, for joining in for this podcast, and love to know more about you. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing, Sarthak. Firstly, glad to be here. I'm happy to talk to you on a Saturday morning. It's a lovely morning in Bangalore. I'm sure most of the other folks in different parts of the country are jealous of the temperature we have here. And a little bit about me. All right. So I currently work as a product manager at an early stage drone tech startup. It's quite a mouthful. But what we do at Aerologics is we have a marketplace where we connect clients who require drone data with actual drone pilots, as well as we build autonomous flight navigation systems for drones. And what I currently do is I work with different teams. That's a web team, mobile team, backend teams. I help architect solutions on the technical side. And I also work on product idea to project delivery. So as you can see, because I'm at an early stage startup, I will have to handle multiple different things, but that's something that I enjoy. So that's what I do currently. And what I used to do before this is I used to work at an aviation tech startup called FI, based in the Netherlands. And we used to build flight systems wherein we would enable streaming of data across the cabin of the airplane, almost like creating a bubble within an airplane, for different applications such as e-commerce, as well as for content delivery. So that's where I was. Previous to that, I worked in government organizations like HAL and DRDO on mostly military applications that I can't talk about in public, unfortunately.
But very intriguing though, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can tell you, but I may have to complete the sentence yourself.
Yeah, I totally understand. But yeah, amazing journey. So working on military applications and moving towards this aerospace industry, working at a startup at Netherlands, I think it's a story in itself, right? So yeah, phenomenal journey. But what made you move to this space? Or like, how did your interest go into something like aerospace tech or drone tech? What was that turning point in your life?
Absolutely. So when it comes to aerospace tech, I'll start with aviation and aerospace itself. What really led me to it, I want to say, is the movie Top Gun, but that's not really true. That's I wish I can pull off that level of coolness. But I've always been interested in aircraft since I was a kid. Since I was, as long as I can remember, I always had this fascination with airplanes and aircraft. I read as much as I can as a child, and I always knew that this is something that I wanted to do. And I also did my aerospace engineering in Chennai. And as soon as I got a chance to move to Bangalore through my interaction with certain government entities, I decided that that was the best decision I could make, because Bangalore has traditionally been the hub of aviation and aerospace technology development in India for years, for more than 100 years. So I knew this is the right place to be. However, once I got here and I decided that I want to move into the private sector, I also learned that Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of India. So I saw these cross sections that took place where it is the aviation and aerospace hub, but it's also, so if you draw this Venn diagram, I saw this middle section where I knew I needed to be in this part of engineering, which is aviation and aerospace. But I also knew that I'll be really missing out on a huge opportunity if I don't get into tech. So the idea was, how do I marry this passion and this big opportunity? And that's why that influenced my decision into moving into this sector. And moving into aviation tech, I think my background working with the government, as well as me being a design engineer, helped me land that first job. And it gave me a great experience in international business, and even slightly moving out of a technical role and stepping into a management role, and seeing how the world works essentially when it comes to business, when it comes to aviation. However, I also saw that the downside of that is aviation is highly regulated, right? And there's a reason for that. If your car breaks down, you can pull over on a highway. But if your airplane engine stops in the sky, good luck pulling out of that, right? So there's a reason why it's heavily regulated, which is a good thing because of safety, but it's a not so good thing because it stifles innovation.
Right.
It makes things very slow because of all the rules and regulations and certifications needed. So after really living the aviation lifestyle, which is a very cool lifestyle, I think everyone should experience that at least once. After that, I decided I want to get into heavier tech. I wanted to get into image analytics. I wanted to get into something where things we could move fast and break things, so to speak. And I also wanted to get into something that's forward or future looking, right? And the only possible answer for that is a drone, right? It is looked at as a tech entity rather than an aerospace or aviation entity because of how strongly software and cutting edge tech really controls how we fly these things and what applications we use them for. So again, it was something that I learned on the job, and I decided to move towards more deeper into the tech space while keeping that DNA intact. And it was into drones. And one of my seniors, I would say, one of my good friends, Aman Singh, he's a fantastic product manager himself, but he introduced me to the co-founders of the current place I work at, which is Aerologics. And essentially, the last 3 years have been extremely rewarding, where we went from a concept and idea to building out a product to really capturing the entire market to now expanding into different geographies and launching our SaaS product really soon. So that's my journey in a nutshell. And that's what led me to this decision of where I am in the sector today.
Yeah, I think fingers crossed for your product that is coming soon. But
Absolutely.
a phenomenal journey in itself, because it's so good to hear that, because that is so relatable for me. I was very fascinated with aircrafts and aeroplanes and how things function or how things fly when I was a kid. I always used to buy those mini aircraft, the model aeroplanes and everything. Uh, at the time of engineering, I also mentioned that I only want to do that aerospace engineering and whatnot. Yeah, so but couldn't go. But that is the thing, that I was also fascinated by it, and I could really feel that passion and how you have married the two with the tech and everything, and that you have led to this career path. I think that is very interesting. And since the current situation has moved in a way where aircrafts and now the drone as a thing come into the picture, where that is the most hot topic right now with everybody. I have also recently purchased a drone because of the hype and everything, because I want to do more travel vlogs and everything.
Good job. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely want to understand like how this drone tech works, or like what are the things about it, or what are the fascinating things that you can mention about aerospace and drones.
Absolutely. All right. So let me answer this in a way, starting out with drone applications and the market in general, and then we'll move into the specifics of the product and what exactly we are trying to do, right?
Okay.
So drone as a term and as a technology has been thrown around a lot in the last couple of years, and I can see why. It's a very fascinating piece of tech,
Right.
right? Because up until now, anything that flies has always been out of comprehension of regular people like us, whether it's an aircraft or it's a helicopter. These are these big machines that have very complex engines and aerodynamics, and it's very out of reach. However, drones changed that. Drones gave us a flying object that we can all afford, and we can do things ourselves. What required a helicopter, a maintenance crew, trained pilots is now done with a simple Mavic Pro, right?
Right.
And it's a huge boon for the entire industry and also for Instagram influencers like
Yeah.
yourself, I think, Sarthak.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's captured the fascination of and the imagination of all of us, because it's taken something that's very out of reach and put it within a price range and within something that's very within us. The skies are now democratized, like how I like to call it. We have democratized a very fixed industry. So that is why I believe drones are really taking the imagination of everybody. And that's why I believe it's the future. It's something that we will see more and more of as time progresses and as the technology matures. Now, why have drones really been in top and center stage for news, for example, or in our day-to-day talks? It's because of two things. I think if we rewind even 10 years ago, if we were in 2010, 2008, drones were still there, but they were looked at as a military tool. If you remember, around the time when Osama bin Laden was identified, at that point of time, when the speech was made, one of the first things Obama said was drones have been hovering overhead and captured images. So most people categorize drones as a military asset, a military object, and it was never looked at as something commercial. But I'm very glad to see that over the last couple of years, it's now drones. When someone mentions a drone, you think of an Instagram influencer. You don't necessarily think of something hunting a international terrorist overhead, right? So I'm very glad, and I think that mindset shift in people has really created a larger acceptance, and with larger acceptance comes larger civilian applications. Okay, so that brings me to the second part of my answer, which is, what are the different applications we can use drones, be it a small commercially off the shelf available drone or something that's massive? So I will start with India because I feel like that's going to be more relatable to you and maybe some of your viewers as well. So Sarthak, maybe that's a question for you. Where have you seen drones the most in India, or where do you believe drones have been seen the most? Do you have any idea?
So generally, what I have felt that drones, apart from military applications, I have seen them on trips and most fairly towards the plain lands, because they generally stuck in forest and everything. So plain lands, I could see more drones. Yeah.
Fair enough. So that's very high level thinking, very product manager answer there, Sarthak. Good job. You're doing your job well. But I'll tell you the reality. The reality is the largest application of drones in India are at weddings. हर शादी के लिए ड्रोन बनता है. Like, you need one drone. It's become mandatory now. It's a sign of status or something. So it's interesting, but it's also telling me as someone who works in this industry that photography is a huge market in India. So there are some very, very smart folks who took up that idea, built up on that, and also identified the second thing that Indians love the most is, of course, sports, cricket. We are having different leagues like IPL, which is one, I think, the largest sports league in the world, even over NFL. And we have Kabaddi League, for example. So these are applications that are unique to a country like India, right? Where there is a need for certain photography angles. Bollywood, for example, I would say, invested a lot of money into drones, and so did different film industries in South India, etc. This really helped the acceptance. However, if we move to a market like, let's say, Eastern Europe, the peaceful part of Eastern Europe at this point, in countries like that, climate is a big factor. We live in paradise, so to speak, where we can go out and work any time of the year. But in certain parts of Eastern Europe, it gets very cold to the magnitude of minus 20 degrees, minus 30 degrees Celsius, where it's very hard for a human being to go out and carry out a function. Or it's going to take a lot of time, right? And also the population is not as high as India. We are gifted with a large population. In other countries, it's very low, which means the cost of labor is very high, which means people are interested in getting as much done as soon as possible.
Correct.
Right? If there are 50 people to do one job, we really don't care about time. But if there's one person to do 50 jobs, we want that person to be as efficient as possible. So that's rewarded. Efficiency is rewarded in these places which are very inhospitable and the labor costs are very high. So that's where a technology like a drone can come in handy. I call it a force multiplier, which means that what a human being can do in X amount of time, a drone can do in X minus one amount of time. And in a market where, as I said, labor is hard, it's a hard market, the weather is always fighting against you, something like a drone will be your magical solution there. So let me give you another example that's more relatable. As we know, the 5G rollout happened across the world around 2019 and 2020, and then COVID hit and everyone was watching TikTok videos, and telecommunications industry really reaped a lot of rewards, I would say, because the internet was used at a much higher rate as opposed to non-COVID times when you would actually go to some place. So in places like Eastern Europe, in places like even Western Europe, there was a need for constructing these 5G towers across different landscapes. And at the same time, COVID hit, which meant that humans couldn't actually go out. So on top of an existing labor shortage in these markets, there's also COVID, which meant that all companies were looking at what technology can I use So I can send out one guy, but do the job of 10 or 15 guys or girls, right? So that's where I think a technology like a drone is a perfect example. So let's take telecommunications, since we are talking about 5G, we're talking about COVID. So for example, we see towers all around us in Bangalore here. We're very used to that. But in other countries, for example, there are a lot of environmental compliances that are needed. You cannot build a tower in a highly populated area. You cannot build a tower in a nature reserve, for example. So there is a need for a lot of study and documentation for every tower. Before a tower is built, you need to do a survey of the land. While a tower is being built, you need to make sure that the tower is being built to the degree of accuracy so that it is covering a large area. And after the tower is built, for the lifespan of the tower, which is 15 years, you need to make sure the tower is in good health. And what I mean by that is it's not rusting because of, let's say, snow. It is the electronics are okay, and so many other things. And at the end of the lifespan of the tower, which is 15 to 20 years, it is properly taken down and recycled in a way that's environmentally conscious. Okay. So there are all these steps that are currently being done by humans. There's a human being with a scanner who is scanning the entire thing. It's a very, I would say, a very hardy man or a woman who goes out into the wilderness and scans these things. And of course, these are manual processes that take time. So to give you a more tangible answer, it can take a person up to an hour or hour and a half to complete the scanning of one tower, because we need to 3D scan it.
Right.
Whereas a drone can complete it in 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so that's a big, if you look at cost benefit, it's a big one. It's so much more efficient. And a drone does not necessarily even need to be flown from one location. It could be flown from, its takeoff point could be from one location, and it can cover multiple different towers.
Right.
So you see this, you see how it's going to help people. You see how fast things are going to be done and how smoothly it can move along. So that's where we are looking at applications. And the last thing I want to touch on as a conclusion to this very long answer that I've given you is, what is the bottleneck with this process that I just mentioned, where there's a drone taking off, a drone is capturing images of a tower or a windmill or a solar panel. The last bit or caveat in this process, the last thing we can take out to make it more efficient is the flight path, right? Because even now, humans still need to fly the drone with a RC controller, much like this.
Right.
However, what if we can also automate that in a way that's safe for people around, in a way that's compliant? So that is the last barrier for entry. So if I just want to conclude my answer and retrace all the different points I've mentioned, drones have essentially taken the complexity out of flying objects like helicopters and airplanes. They've democratized the space, made it cheap, accessible. Now the second thing is the skill of piloting, right? We've taken the machine out of the equation. Now the pilot needs to be slowly taken out of the equation.
Right.
It sucks for people who love Top Gun like me, because being a pilot is the coolest thing in the world. However, the future, we see that machines are going to be able to do things in a way that's more efficient than us, where they will not make mistakes. So the last barrier for entry is, can we make the drone fly itself? Right? And that's what I'm currently working on at Aerologics, where we build solutions that allows the drone to essentially programmatically fly itself around assets such as telecommunications towers, around windmills, around large solar fields, etc. So that is a kind of a longish answer to all of the different aspects, but I hope that answers your question on educating what the drone sector is about, what aerospace, how it plays a deal, and what the future is as well, because this is a very future looking technology, right?
Definitely.
So I hope I covered all the major bases there.
No, definitely. I think that's the best answer. It's put in very structured manner, and I feel so relatable because I almost also crashed my drone, so I definitely need the need for an autonomous driving. But yeah, the narrative has changed from like couple of years back, because it was more on the military side of it, but now it has more commercial civilian applications, and mostly in India, as you mentioned, the weddings. I have been to ton of weddings, and now every wedding has that, because like 4 years ago it was like 1 in or 10, but now it's more like a 9 in 10, that every wedding has at least one event filled with drone shots and everything.
Yep.
And I feel that the space is growing, and government in a way is also supporting with like deregulating some of the things, or maybe freeing up some of the space. Like one of the things that I enjoyed is like below 250 grams that you can enjoy the drone, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things have been happening in the space, and I think it's rightly mentioned that it's more future looking, so things are going to change in that way.